the local economy and the free markets every day. And the argument is loco-centric and Nooga-centric. I am the leading Nooga-centrist, though Dave Crockett, the former city council member, would want to argue with me. We've been having a little conversation about this, whether he or I am the leading Nooga-centrist. And also, we're both at the same time, while leading Nooga-centrists, we're both kind of internationalists. Dave is an environmentalist and kind of a liberal. And I'm afraid to say I'm an international person as well. My mother is from Switzerland. She turned 94 Friday, and my father, my late father, a TVA engineer, was from an even more remote and strange place than the country of the Alps. He was from Sudbury, Massachusetts, so a New England Irish Catholic. So I do have very international and strange origins and roots. Now, we talk every day on the David Tulis program at 9 here at Nooga Radio about liberty and the marketplace, because the marketplace, which we can boil down to two main points, is better when there's more liberty rather than if there's less, or if there are claimants against liberty, claimants upon the rights of others by the force of law. And those are cartels, those are monopolies, which in Tennessee law, monopolies are forbidden. They're constitutionally forbidden to exist, though the feds, the Yankees, routinely maintain them, even though they have a whole part of the U.S. code called the antitrust code. And the monopoly in Tennessee that is has a strangling hold on prosperity. Well, it has a stranglehold first on liberty, and then one against prosperity, and that is the Tennessee Valley Authority, a cartel if there ever was one. And there's a specific problem that is holding back a reduction in energy prices and the prospective fruitful growth of an independent and diverse and, shall we say, distributed energy sector. Distributed means decentralized. Distributed means that you, my listener, can run an energy factory on your roof, maybe, or in the backfield of your yard, maybe, or on some farmland you've got some ground that you're not tilling, and you say, okay, I'm going to put this ground out of production since it doesn't produce a lot of value under price control or even price floors overseen by the good people in Washington. So I'm going to put a solar farm here on this land. You are being blockaded in that effort. And because the monopoly stands there blocking the way, you can't even think in that direction, right? We can't even think in that direction because of this structure that gives a lot of grief to a noted area conservative. Her name is Debbie Dooley. She's from Atlanta, and she oversees the Conservatives for Energy Freedom. She's the president of that organization. It's a nonprofit charity. She was one of the 22 founders in 2009 of the National Tea Party movement. And Debbie, give my listener kind of a short form of what your grievance is and what is the remedy, and why should my listener care about the remedy? Who cares about whether you can produce energy or not? Most of us are not likely to build solar panels on our houses or in our yards.
Well, it's all about liberty and freedom. It's all about free market choice. It's about these government-created monopolies function like Big Brother. They tell you that the power you produce on your private property belongs to them, not to you. They prohibit you from bringing up solar farm on your private property, or even putting solar panels on your rooftop and selling excess energy produced from solar panels to your neighbors. They will not allow you to enter into a private contract with a third party on your private property. This is wrong. Everybody should be up in arms about this.
Well, let's just let me propose an argument that might skirt what you're saying is a barrier. So what if my neighbors and I, all very advanced people, let's just say there are four of us, we're at the end of a street and we're all thinking people, we all have a little bit of capital, and we want to have an energy grid among ourselves.
Right.
Are you saying that the rules governing TVA or rules written by TVA prohibit that?
They sure do. Essentially, because you would have to use the wire, their transmission lines, which were built and paid for by their customers. You know, they could prohibit that because you're not allowed. TVA, there's 154 local power companies in the TVA area. And they, TVA makes them enter into an all requirements contract, which says TVA will tell all these local companies where you get your power from. You can only get it from us and nobody else.
So are you saying that my three neighbors and I could not build our own network, our own wire? We couldn't do that? Or you're talking, the barricade is the transmission lines, right?
The transmission lines. You would not be allowed to do that. TVA would step in and say, because they have the exclusive ability to sell and produce power. These companies the local companies have to buy it from them. For example, the electric company in the Chattanooga area, if they had a farmer that they wanted to buy solar panels, he wanted to lease his farmland, put solar panels on it, and this local company wanted to purchase solar generated power from him, TVA could stop it because they forced these companies to enter into all requirements contracts. That is wrong. The power you produce on your property should belong to you. You should have the right to enter into a contract with a third party if you so choose. TVA prevents that. And what's really appalling is that I attended and testified at a board meeting of TVA a few weeks ago. The CEO of TVA, Bill Johnson, actually, before the public comment section ended, he said that their customers have energy choice and energy freedom. And he had the unmitigated gall to claim that TVA was not a monopoly. That is ridiculous. They are a federally mandated monopoly that was started and founded by FDR, and it's part of the New Deal that took place, I believe it was 1933.
Well, we heard about this problem not too long ago from the Elicity Group, which has a solar farm at Glentana Street in Rossville. It's $1.5 million investment from a man who formerly was an accountant. And his name is Barney Danks, and he's the chief executive officer of Elicity Group, LLC. And this, of course, is his same complaint that he has to sell to EPB, which he can't, and and again, that EPB is honoring contractual obligations to TVA.
That is
top-down system.
That is correct. TVA stands in the way, and let's be honest about TVA. They're a good old boy network. They have make decisions behind closed doors. There is no transparency. They do backroom deals and backroom deals, and it's a perpetuation of the good old boy system where the politically connected have send their people in. They appoint their people to the board, and they do their bidding, and it's wrong. It's like a giant slush fund for the good old boy system. And by the way, they have $26 billion in unfunded liabilities. That includes their pension plan. So, I mean, this is wrong. And they're trying to actually raise and add a fixed charge to this, which would say before you even turn the lights on, like if you had a house, you were not at that house, did not use electricity, did not even flip the switch on, you would still be required to pay this fixed charge. And they're doing this to raise money because of the fact they're not living within their means like millions and millions of individuals and their customers have to do when their finances are lowered, the money's coming in lowered. And I think TVA should do that.
We're talking with Debbie Dooley of Conservatives for Energy Freedom. Well, Debbie, what is the best my listener can hope for in this sense? He wants to be part of the solar economy. He wants to be involved in saving money by having solar panels. It is an investment. There's a return on investment, as Barney Danks indicated, of about 8 to 12 years before the system is entirely paid for. And all the money after that is theoretically profit. Solar panels last anywhere from maybe 18 to 30, 35 years. And all right, so let's say my listener wants to get involved in this with an investment eye and a thrift eye. What is the best he can do right now? Describe what his steps are, what the relationships are, sort of upstream for him.
Well, basically, he would put probably about a $17,000 investment to put solar panels on his rooftop. That would be it. He would save money on his power bill. It would take time for that investment. We're part of.
Who would buy the power, and discuss that?
Well,
where does the power go? Does he use it all? What if he has extra?
He will have extra, but at this point, unless TVA grants permission to some of these local power companies, it's wasted power. He can't do anything with it. And that's wrong. In Georgia, we passed what is called a PPA bill, which is third-party sales and leasing bill. It would allow, let's say you want to take advantage of God's biggest natural resource, which is the sun. You couldn't afford the upfront cost. Well, you could get a third-party solar company could come in, install solar panels on your rooftop. You enter into a contract with them to buy excess power to buy the power generated from the solar panels at a fixed rate with no rate increase for a certain period of time. It's called a power purchase agreement. TVA will not allow those. They are functioning as Big Brother.
So you're talking about
all the marbles.
You're talking here, Debbie Dooley, about people outside the TVA's jurisdiction, right?
Yes. In Georgia, Georgia Power is in the jurisdiction. North Georgia is in TVA's jurisdiction.
We have solar sellers here in Chattanooga, Debbie, and their pitch is it's efficient. You save on the utility bill, and you can even sell it back. So in that pitch in Chattanooga, Debbie, of Conservatives for Energy Freedom, the excess energy is sold back to EPB, right?
Right.
Power Board. Okay.
But they have to have permission to do that from
they being EPB.
Yes, from TVA. TVA, has to say, yes, you can do this and yes, you can't do that, because there is an all requirements contract. So if TVA were to decide, hey, we don't want you to do that anymore, they didn't have to do that, but they could no longer purchase any of their, power from TVA. TVA would cut them off. That's the thing. Conservatives believe in local control. We believe that the local power companies, should be the ones to decide where they purchase their power from, not have to get permission from TVA for that.
Well, for that to happen, does there have to be a change in the federal statute? Are there congressmen or women interested in pushing legislation in that direction, or is it a lawsuit?
Well, it would either be a lawsuit or putting enormous pressure on TVA to do that. If you go to energyfreedomusa.org, we have a whole section on TVA. You can sign up for our email list, but it's energyfreedomusa.org. And we're about to get this party started. We're going to hold them accountable. We believe in energy freedom, energy choice, and allowing private property owners to become entrepreneurs and generate electricity and sell it to their neighbors if they so choose.
Well, this is part of the great the mega trend, Debbie Dooley, of decentralization, where let's say in the area of manufacturing, with 3D printing, my listener can invest maybe $5,000 or $10,000 in a 3D printer or several, and process parts. He can be a builder of parts either in steel or plastic, and be a shipper from the privacy of his garage. And so you have a decentralization coming in manufacturing, right, which is very much to the advantage of the listener and his children. Maybe the listener, if he's 55 or so, maybe he's not going to do it himself, but he needs to think in terms of the future, which is the power coming back locally. You might say executive decisions coming back locally, hopefully to heads of households and local enterprises. And that's that trend we're seeing in many areas. We're seeing right. that in the cryptocurrency phenomenon, in the Uber phenomenon touching the transportation and trafficking of people sector, the cab business, Airbnb on formerly centralized places for lodgings. These high investment, capital intensive property-intensive investments in lodging services, lodging buildings and high-rises, now being decentralized so that anybody with a house can be a provider of a bed and comfortable space for a visitor. And we are all about visitors now. So you're arguing, Debbie Dooley, is in keeping with the major trend.
Right. And you have to understand, it's a national security issue right now. You hear all this talk about terrorist attacks. There is nothing more vulnerable to a terrorist attack than our centralized power grid. We need to move to a decentralized structure. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission issued a report a few years ago that found that terrorists, if they were able to identify and take down the 9 key substations, it would cause a blackout from coast to coast that would take months to get over, weeks or months to recover from. And they don't have to have access to a system. In April of 2013, a substation that powered Silicon Valley was taken down. The terrorists did that by cutting the phone lines, opening fire on the substations with AK-47s, took the substation down, and disappeared. Can you imagine what a well-coordinated attack would be? Well, if we had tens of millions of decentralized solar panels, we would still have power during the daytime. It's time we open the markets and allow innovation to take place, much like what happened when the Bell system was deregulated.
Which, of course, dropped the prices of everything from wire, cable, phones themselves, and much fruit came from that. This is David Tulis, and I did call this morning Scott Fiedler, the TVA flack, with whom I've talked before about asking him to come on the program. We're talking with Debbie Dooley. She is with Conservatives for Energy Freedom. She's the president, formerly involved with the National Tea Party movement. She was one of the 22 founders in 2009 of that noted conservative pushback against the progressive heavenlies, if you will, in Washington. So you're proposing, Debbie, that there's more security for the maintenance of the current if it's decentralized. And if there is really a terror threat, which I discount, I think that the terror threat is far overstated for the purposes of enhancing, quote, security.
Right.
And there's a need by the security state, by the executive state, to have that threat and to constantly nourish it and nurture it. Think that most FBI, most terrorist incidents in this country are spawned and created and executed by the FBI. They're kind of traps for the unwary Muslim who has some hateful language in his throat, getting caught up in a sting. So maybe that's not a grave threat, but still you are pointing out that in decentralization there is some security that we don't have now.
Absolutely. And I mean, when I talk about terrorists, let's be absolutely clear. There are domestic terrorists. You don't have to come from another nation or be a particular religion. Look what happened with the shooter in Las Vegas, which I honestly believe we'll never know the true story on what happened there because I believe it's being covered up. That he was a domestic terrorist. So when I talk about terrorists, I'm not talking specifically about people from other countries or a specific religion, because when you have mass shootings, what happened with the church in Texas, that was an act of domestic terrorism. But can you imagine the catastrophic impact if they could take down our power grid? There's a movie I encourage you to watch. It was 20 years ago, Chuck Norris, Invasion USA. Look at that movie. That's what's coming to our country. What if they were to attack power grids and substations across the nation? What if they were to take down our power grid? What would happen?
Well, people give a lot of credit to TVA, a coal-burning utility that brings people into traffic court. By the way, a story that only we covered, and it is utility that claims has a mantle of righteousness over its activities, which again are government. It centers on government because the people of the South, the people in Tennessee, the main state in which it operates, are incompetent to do things on their own. They can't manage anything privately. there is no incentive anywhere to have any kind of large-scale project. Debbie Dooley, thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Debbie is the president of Conservatives for Energy Freedom, and you can find out more at energyfreedomusa.org, energyfreedomusa.org. David Tulis here, making the case for the free market, local economy, and the free market. Near is better than far, small than big, and simple than complex. And in the footnotes, it's 5-point type, sans serif. That means Helvetica. Personal is better than corporate, and physical than abstract. Brought to you by Nooganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. Nooganomics.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.